Hi everyone, this is the WildFly community call for January 8th, and it's the first one for 2026, so Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you all have a good break, if you take one, and that you are fully recharged. We don't have really a community announcement because, Brian, you will discuss the WildFly 39 release. So I think we can directly go to the agenda. You want to start, Brian?
Sure. So the release status for WildFly 39, it's scheduled for next week. So the final steps would be on Thursday, the 15th, a week from today, or a week from tomorrow. Something like that. That seems wrong. No, that's right. Or maybe it's the 16th.
No, it's correct. Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, I was very pleased. I just got back from a couple of weeks off, and I got back yesterday, and I saw that things seem to be in good shape for getting the release out. So I'm very happy with that. Things should be a pretty calm release. There's like 5 blockers we have open, but they seem to be in hand. There's a test tweet issue that I think probably isn't a blocker. There's a cluster and topology issue we got to get fixed, but I think there's a workaround fix that we have available if need be. There's an under release that's happening that's fixing a critical bug. And then there's a WildFly plugin release that will happen once Core is released. And finally, there's JBoss metadata stuff that I was chatting about in Zulip with Emmanuel just before the call, but I think that's all in hand. So none of those things are scary. They all seem like they'll be sorted out. So that's good. The nightly CI results look good too, and the TCK results will look good. So I think we're on track for having a hopefully low stress release.
Great.
Yeah.
Then we can move to the next item.
Yeah, something really less low stress. This I actually put this topic on here maybe yesterday because I wasn't. We had difficulties deploying. People might know we had a lot of difficulties deploying to JBoss Nexus in December. And as a result of that, we actually took the main WildFly app server, the main chunk of. We released many things to release WildFly, but one of them, the main one, was the app server, and we moved that to deploying directly to Maven Central. We had problems deploying to JBoss Nexus. So I put this on here in case we were still having problems, and maybe we would want to consider also moving WildFly Core. Yep, Jeff.
Just for my curiosity, was it a one-off to do that for WildFly, or are we moving to Maven Central permanently? Are we deploying to Maven Central permanently now?
Yeah, we're doing it permanently. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's problematic to be switching back and forth. So now that we've done it, that's what we'll keep doing. So
okay.
Yeah. Which is an important thing because, I mean, this topic was about WildFly Core, which is kind of similar to WildFly itself. It's a very big release that could have problems. So I thought maybe we would have a problem with it for getting 39 final out so we could talk about moving. But it sounds like in some chat today, Ure was saying that he did a stage release and things seem to be much better now. So if need be, we can not even discuss this now and defer it if you all want, or we can talk about it if you all want. Whatever you think. I guess Ure is pretty the person to talk whether he wants to talk about it or not.
Yeah, my deploy. Yesterday I deployed to Stagin WildFly Core just to play with it after the Christmas shutdown and PTOs. Yeah, I really didn't find any issues during the deployment, but just the deployment. So obviously it was not moved to from a stage to releases, but yeah, maybe. I mean, I remember at the beginning when we started with Nexus, and the deployments usually takes more or less 20 minutes, something like that. The yesterday deployment, it wasn't in 20 minutes, but it was for sure less than 1 hour. So maybe 40 minutes or so. I didn't monitor exactly the time it took. But besides that, I guess it was, I didn't get any issue or problems during the deployment. It was completely done successfully. Also, I check it after the deployment using the stage, and I didn't find any issues.
Okay,
I don't
good.
know if it was exceptional behavior after the Christmas, but yeah, so far it seems it is good.
Okay, good. So, I mean, my basic feeling is, obviously making changes at the last minute is not good. So if we don't have any kind of emergency, making a last minute change, which doesn't seem like a good idea. If in the future we want to, that we always can. We know how to do it now. The good thing that happened is, I mean, we learned a lot because, we learned a lot in December. In particular, that when we deployed stuff up there, you basically have a thing called a bundle that's up there that has everything, and then you basically kind of promote the bundle. So that is nice because it does give you the ability to. The big concern with something like WildFly in the past is that we wanted to make sure that if something broke halfway, that we didn't end up with a half-released broken thing. So having some kind of a staging thing was really critical. And they basically cover that. It's not a staging repo, so you can't sit there and point your Maven client to it and start testing using Maven clients. But you can at least, everything came up there, then went up there. It looks right. Hit the button. So that's good. So, that's big thing, good thing to know. Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, so you mean that when we deploy directly to Central, we have a kind of sanity check that are run before we actually push to the repository?
They actually run an analog to the jobs that David Lockheed set up on Nexus. Those are analogs of things that Maven Central does. So they validate the release in terms of like checking the POM correctness and all that stuff.
That's great to know. So deploying to Central, perhaps for what I have to deploy, it will be a bit short, so I will do for Nexus, but I will be ready to move stuff to Central directly if we have this intermediate step.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about these things on a kind of one-by-one basis. James is not here, but he had experience with this. There's issues with things like Dependabot. Maybe if you've switched back and forth between where it comes from, Dependabot gets confused about what to monitor. I guess he knows better, so I'm paraphrasing maybe completely wrongly. It gets confused about where it should consider the authoritative place for your new releases, and maybe then it stops noticing them, things like that. Which for WildFly itself, I don't think people are counting on Dependabot as much for WildFly itself. Maybe they do. But I mean, but if you start talking individual components, maybe that's more of a concern that you got to be careful about. There might be other reasons to not do that. We definitely had to do it as an emergency, or we couldn't have done the release in December. But it's definitely something to think about and discuss. And then the other thing we have to think about is the last little sub bullet here is with JBoss Nexus, we have like pretty clear control over who can deploy to what repos. And we have nice mechanisms with our colleagues, former colleague at Red Hat, for how that all works and how we administer that and all that. Whereas if Maven Central, it's new and it's different, it's something we're learning about. So we want to make sure that we don't just go run amok and then have a big mess of who's got permissions to do what and all that kind of thing.
Are the permissions based on the group IDs of the artifacts, or is it more complex?
Yeah, it's based on the group IDs. And what's not clear to me, it seems it's better than I thought, but I thought it was basically at the 2 level, like org.wildfly level.
Okay.
And it sounds like it might be more, you can do things at a lower level than that, but I don't really know.
So the term they use for group ID is actually called namespace. And so for example, you can definitely do, sub namespaces so one of the things we're migrating on the Archelion side is basically we are moving Archelion to publishing to Central exactly because of the same problems we have had at WildFly. And there we have the org JBoss Archelion namespace. So we don't have the entire org JBoss organizations as permissions. We only have like the sub one. So we can mimic something very similar to what we have in current Nexus if we use namespaces accordingly and properly set up permissions per namespace. The difference, I guess, is like in the namespace, there's one person, the person can do anything. So people who are in the namespace can deploy. But I don't think we need to go more granular than that. And especially if the entire staging goes away, because as I was like mentioning like last year, end of last year, like the way that this deploys, it's really, really wonderful. Like it just creates one bundle at the end and it uploads that bundle. So if you're using like the Maven release plugin, for instance, and you set it up not to push, right? So you can, when you're deploying, you can figure out if the deployment is going to be successful. And if it is, then you push the tag and everything. So it removes this entire staging. And then even if you do release and stage and you pass the validation, the Davis validation is not one-to-one to what Sonatype is going to be doing. So we have had many releases in the past that actually would not sync to Central, only would remain in Central. Again, creates more and more confusion to users, like which version is coming from, right? So I've actually noticed this. I think building WildFly 30, I don't know which one, like 38 or something, you can actually build it without adding the JBoss repositories, because like, for instance, JGroups wasn't synced to Central. So you can just, so it is really wonderful so far from, what we have seen and where we've used it. So if we are going in this direction, it has definitely a lot of advantages.
Good.
I think we should still recommend to use the to provide the Nexus repository for people that are consuming WildFly bits from Maven, because in the past we have created fork for some projects that we were not able to push to Maven Central. So I think we should still recommend to keep Nexus in the POMs, even if most of the things will now come from Maven Central.
Yeah, but are we recommending it at the moment? So I don't know, maybe you noticed, but I was like cleaning up some of the readmes regarding certain things. I don't actually remember stumbling upon like, oh, you should add this. Maybe we have it, but it's definitely not like out there. Like you need to add this repository. So I don't think we're actually promoting that.
It's more in the examples that we have. I don't think it's properly documented. We have it in the things that we provide.
And I also remember from time to time that Central can have issues also. If you try to deploy when they are doing maintenance or stuff like that, you could run into a situation where you will be happy to deploy to Nexus.
Yeah, that's where it's tricky, because I don't think switching back and forth works well. I don't know. It just sounds like likely to be a problem. I don't know. Maybe not. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I suspect we can probably not this call isn't the place to do it, but we can pick your brain more, Rado, about like the details of how the authentication setup and the permission setup is done and all that stuff. That's good knowledge to like.
Yeah, that bit is also problematic because, for instance, like the only way to set up the permissions was James sending emails around to like support. There's no like administrative thing that you can click. And I think like this is on their end, like this seems to be quite new. For instance, you can create a token, but you cannot scope the token to a namespace. So if you create like a deployment token, it's to like all the namespaces you have access to. So it's a tiny bit problematic. So
yeah, it's definitely in the JBoss Nexus. We have much cleaner control over things, I think. Although I haven't had to do too much admin stuff, but I think it's cleaner. So that's definitely an advantage. Yeah, Tom?
Can you have like a bot process that does the deployment, or is it like a human being? Like, if I did a deployment, would it have to show my name against it? Rado's on the phone. But yeah, I guess I would wonder if it has to say like Tom Jenkinson against it or not. Brother, do you know?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I saw.
Can you just repeat the last?
Yeah,
well,
does it have to be a human being that like does the deployment to Maven Central, or could you have like a bot account that does it? Would the deployments have to be associated with a human? Like, say, would they say Tom Jenkinson deployed this, or could it be like WildFly bot or whatever?
Yeah, I think
You
you
don't
can
know.
from your own. Yeah, like I don't think they have. So from what I have seen from like their admin console, you know, like you generate the token, but I didn't see a way to like, you know, they could generate a token for that particular namespace. Then you can use from the bot. So I think that's clearly something that they're going, you know, this role-based access control and, you know, minimal permissions thing, you know, just basic security 101. I think they're just like working on that eventually. So I think like when you know, you can create like a scope tokens, then you can probably use them.
Thank you.
But I don't personally feel very comfortable like uploading some sort of tokens to like cloud environment where it can run and stuff. So
No, I know what you mean.
I think we need to get like the infrastructure sort of first, and then we can see how we can provide the credentials in a safe way. So I don't think we are there yet, but definitely something to think about.
Even if it was a bot, it would have to have a PGP signature.
Well, that's also problematic.
Yeah. These are, we can talk to, like, you know, we have good close relationships with people working on Hibernate, and you know, I think there's various teams that we collaborate with all the time that have a lot of automated release experience. I don't know exactly, but I think they have a fair amount of automation. So we might be able to learn just by talking to other projects too about what they're doing.
Okay. Thanks. Ben, Brian, again, you working on the new feature pack for Jakarta EE10?
Yeah, so this is something I get. Well, when did I first talk about this? At one of the mini conferences a while ago, I talked about for when we moved to E11, we want to produce a separate feature pack and distribution for E10 and maintain that for at least a quarter or two. Is basically a mechanism to allow people to you know, have a quick take more time to move to EE without losing access to bug fixes and stuff. Is essentially what this is all about. So we're getting close to being done with E11. You know, we're hopefully we'll be done for WildFly 40. We won't be for WildFly 39, just as FYI for people listening to this. So now's the time. So I did some work on that over the break. And basically I sent, you know, sign up a PR, people can look at that to see what it's all about. That's basically it. So today I'll create a WildFly feature issue. Sometime I'll do a proposal. Today I'm super jet lagged. I don't know if I have the brain power to do a proposal today. But anyways, it basically it creates a new feature pack in dist. You know, we already have two, and you know, we have standard WildFly and WildFly EE, so we already have this kind of thing in the build in the project anyway. So it's just basically expanding that. So Jeff is writing something difficult. Doc using a different archive.
Yeah, so sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you. I was just thinking, you know, what you say that people that do not want to move to E11 would have to consume something different that what they are using. So just in terms of docs, you know, if you want to stay on E10, you will have to change the zip, the distributions that you are using to stay. So sorry, I'm just writing that while you were talking.
No, this is excellent because it like actually segregates into the bullet point below that, which is like what we're going to name things, because it turns out all this stuff, like the progress problem is it's always names and stuff like that. So what I'm proposing to do is like use EE10 as part of the artifact ID for the user-facing bits of this. You know, there's like various internal bits, so we're not going to, but we'll stick EE10 in the name. Then when we get to WildFly whatever that does EE12 and then we do an E11 variant, then it'll be a different artifact ID. But yeah, that is one of the discussion points for the feature, is what do we call these things. But it seems to me that it's good to stick the version in the artifact ID and it doesn't become something that you use it for a while, then you move off. If you want to do the next one, you have to make a change. You don't,
Yes.
we don't give it like a static name that lasts forever, and then you don't really know what it means. That was kind of my thinking. And then, yeah.
Will it be also the E10 would be part of the archives, the zips name, right?
Yeah. That's a good point. I have to actually see how that works and whether it's right or not already. But my basic feeling is, yeah, it's part of the zip name. I don't know if it's part of, like, if you unzip it. I haven't thought too much about it, but I think it would probably be. It would definitely be part of the artifact idea of the zip. I guess my point is what it says if you like unzip the zip. I think right now, like WildFly EE dist, if you unzip it, it actually calls itself WildFly. That's the name of the folder, which maybe isn't right. So anyways, yeah. I'm not sure about that part, but the artifact ID would definitely have the E10. Yeah. So.
And actually, it would be great if it was unzipping to WildFly without any. I need to check. I don't remember how it's unzipped.
I think this was done, I was visiting my in-laws and hanging out so there was a period where there was nothing to do, so I did work on this. And I'm pretty sure when I poked at it, it was like, yeah, the WildFly EE dist, if you unzip it, it's called WildFly. Okay. It's not called WildFly EE. So I think you're right. It makes sense to do that way. So then people have a consistent experience, on their file system. They don't need the distinction. So I think that makes sense.
I think we will have also, on wildfly.org, see how we present that in the downloads page. Because now for every version of WildFly, bits will be changing.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, we might, it's not a guarantee that there's always going to be one of these things. Like as soon as we don't feel comfortable maintaining E10 anymore, we'll drop it. And that doesn't mean we'll be ready to move to an E11 variant, because we'll only do that once the main thing moves to E12, and maybe that won't have happened yet. So it's not even necessarily going to be there all the time.
Maybe, it's not part of the downloads, but more, on a page that describes the different relation between Jakarta EE and WildFly distributions and microprofile also. Maybe we need to have somewhere a matrix that explains, what you should consume depending on what you want to stay on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely the docs and how to describe things is. Yeah. The other interesting thing about this is at this point, so we have people might not be aware of this because it's not typically user facing for a typical end user, but we have the WildFly feature pack, which is based on the WildFly EE feature pack. And what we're doing is we're creating another variant of WildFly EE. Then there's going to be but you can still use on top of that, you can still use the WildFly feature pack on top of it. So we're not going to basically at this point, we don't need to create a separate variant for like microprofile 7.2 or something based on E11. It doesn't exist. So all that WildFly feature pack stuff, we're not going to create a separate one. It's a matter of end users choosing which feature packs they want to use. That's definitely something that needs to be documented. Of course, if you just download the zip, then you're not thinking about all this stuff. But for the provisioning, when you're using Galleon and stuff to Maven, WildFly Maven plugin, this stuff matters. So we definitely gonna have to document how it works. Well, that's just kind of FYI. I started, this is something I've been thinking about and knew how, we were going to do, and I kind of knew how to do it. So it started happening because this quarter is going to become important.
Okay. And so we are planning to do that feature pack, E10 feature pack for 40, even if we are not sure if 40 would be moving to E11.
Oh, no, I would not. want to know.
Okay. So it's only when we will be E11 in WildFly that we will have that feature pack.
Because there's no, I mean, so the work on it will be happening in parallel almost for sure. Well, obviously, because it already is. We're not at E11 yet, but I already did a pretty substantial branch. So the work will happen in parallel, but there's no reason to release it until we standard WildFly. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks. Any other questions, comments about that feature pack, that work on E10? Okay. Last thing on the agenda, someone put Hibernate or RM66 working with SC25. As a general note, we still have a lot of upstream projects that are moving to supporting Jakarta Java 25. So, do you have an update for that, Brian, regarding WildFly on Java 25?
So there's like 4 different levels of how we discuss what our support for SE, and I'm going to try to remember what they all are. Or maybe there's only 3, but basically we always want WildFly to support, at least for kicking the tires and being useful for prototyping and stuff, the latest SE that's available when we do a WildFly release. So even if it's like a non-LTS SE, so like we did that for WildFly 24, 23, all sorts of different ones. So that's one level. The second level is the same, but except if it's an LTS release, then we're saying it's qualifying, because that's the term I use. Because the intent then is to do further qualification so that it can become our recommended SE version. And that's where SE25 is right now with WildFly. It was for WildFly 38, and it still is for WildFly 39. I hope to complete the qualification for WildFly 40. That's my hope. So the basic, what is qualification consists of, is really 3 things. One is that we run like our standard nightly test suites and all that stuff. That we pass those things with no problems. And we were pretty close to that already. I think we were actually fine for WildFly 38 and SC25. And that's what we always do for even non-LTS releases. So we did that. The next part is we basically poll the people responsible for integrating all of our major components to have them investigate what kind of testing there is of those components on C25. I think it's a public document that created a Google Doc for this. I think it's open to the public. And that has been going on. And we've made and Tom has actually been really helpful on this. Thank you, Tom. He's been helping drive this. And we've been making really good progress on that. I think we're in quite good shape. And this interesting discussion I noted in there is one potential problem area was Hibernate 6.6, which is what we use it's what we use for the E10 variant. It didn't. Bytecode enhancement didn't work properly with SC25 of Hibernate 6.6, but they did a change and they upgraded a component, and it's out and it's been integrated into WildFly. So this potentially fairly significant problem area is fixed. So that's good. So anyways, we're in really good shape on that. And thank you. Somebody put the link in there. I appreciate that. The final aspect of it is we always we try to use the Jakarta TCK, the E and the microprofile TCKs. Not necessarily to certify, but as a massive test suite to demonstrate the things work. And that is in progress with testing WildFly on SC25. The issue there is you cannot run the E10 TCK. There's problems running E10 TCK and SC25, problems with the TCK itself. So it's kind of, that part is kind of mixed up with actually also just passing the E11 TCK and SC17 and 21 as well. So that's kind of happening in parallel. So that's a long-winded answer. We're going to get those 3 things done, and once we do, then hopefully for WildFly 40, the SC25 will become our recommended.
Yes. So maybe, going back to your point about the feature pack for the legacy feature pack for E10, part of that matrix would be also to say which Java version should be used, because we would be at the point for a given version of WildFly, you should use 17 if you are using the legacy E10 and 25 if you are using the regular version of WildFly. I think, yeah, the Java version should be part of that information to understand, what's the best combination to run that.
Yeah, I agree. Because I mean, it's certainly possible that, I mentioned we have these 4 categories that we might end up we might end up doing like the recommended for the E10 version of SC25. It's possible we won't feel that we have enough data, particularly because of the TCK. The TCK is like tens of thousands of tests, and if we can't run it, there's a different confidence than there is. So it's possible there will be a distinction between the E10 variant versus the E11. Yeah. And yep, more to document. This is good because I have to write the analysis for this thing, and now you're giving me all the data that I need to include. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I would be pretty interested to comment it, to give some feedback about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it was a tangent. The real point was that there's work on Hibernate ORM to support bytecode enhancement with 25. We are almost at the end of the agenda. Is there anything else that people want to discuss or mention? When we started the community call, I asked some of our developers to do some presentation on roadmaps about their components. So there was Manuel proposed to do something on Narayana, Flavia about Endotos. I will ping them to add that to the upcoming meetings to give highlights on the various projects that are used by inside WildFly. Anything else to discuss? Okay. In that case, we can keep the meeting short. Thanks everybody for joining, and thanks Brian for all the points that you discussed today. Bye everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.